Welcome to Of Darkness and Light. This is Daphne Garrido. Tonight, I want to talk about love. I want to talk about feeling cursed in your life, in everything you do, win or lose. I want to talk about self-betrayal and living with unhealed wounds of the heart. For some time now, I have felt cursed as a schizophrenic person who works inside out through mythologizing my trauma and then peeling back its layers as metaphor into the reality of my life. In that process, I have found that some layers don't peel back past, magic is real, which is fun. But there is a large portion of what I have mythologized personally as being cursed, and spent much of the time thinking I needed a hug from somebody in my recent past who had traumatized me. And everything I did was leading to pain. And my depression spiraled, and I became schizophrenic, and I became trapped in a whirlwind of trauma. And my whirlwind of trauma worked like this. Up top, there was a freshest wound that I made hurt even worse, because when I became schizophrenic, I reached out to somebody and it just became a major trauma of needing to be forgiven for the way I reached out and to heal the wound in my heart of how that went. Because it's so sad to lose your mind and reach out in a really shameful way and to somebody that you care for a lot, regardless of how they feel for you. And so that brought me into this spiral loop of holding up top at the trauma and just beginning to heal everything, because the process of coming together as a schizophrenic is about facing everything that's in your body, everything that's in your psychic memory, everything that you're holding of trauma and of illusion and of self-betrayal, and then healing your wounds with yourself, healing your wounds with other people who will, if they won't, finding a way to extricate the pain that they have placed onto you out of yourself. And I would venture to say that the truth of my body, driven by executive dysfunction beyond me of schizophrenic origin, in almost Tourette's-like reaching out towards people, driven in the way that feels needed and balancing of truth. I've said really horrible, cursy things to people that I mean. And these shamanistic ways I've been trained of releasing those things are writing letters and burying them in the dirt and burning things and breathing and letting go and screaming. And I'm saying, as a schizophrenic person, that doesn't do shit, dude. It's a lie. You got to put it back where it's got to go. And in this world, that's a blessing only allowed for a disabled woman who no one has helped, that is literally incapable of basically doing any harassment lawfully, because of their unique situation with schizophrenia and executive dysfunction. That's already a legal liability towards the people who have wielded the law against her. And so yeah, it's like, who wants to stack up more people that are liable for my disability being uncared for, along with the state of Washington? Bring it on, dudes. So that's just my interesting situation. But the truth is, I healed so many wounds in my body, and I did it ungracefully. I did it alone and of high strangeness and of intelligence misunderstood, and of communication that, no matter how it was feathered on this end, was obviously not received by anyone earnestly, who has proper means to help me. There are a few people who are out there who genuinely understand. They just don't have anything to do to help from where they're at and what they've got, right? And so that's real. And as I've healed all these wounds, I came to realize that there was still just this one on the top, and that was actually a lie, because there was one at the bottom. A huge part of my social commentary has been about a love-stricken society where matters of the heart are demonized in comparison to calculations of the mind, and pharmaceutically driven psychology has pushed people into bubbles of medication and isolation rather than healing. There are genuinely no mediation services available to the public. It's just there are some private places you can go, and I'm sure in some states there are some sort of like mediation services, maybe, but that's something that's just not known of. It's just like, dude, you just put restraining orders on people here. That's what you do. You just take them to court, and whoever wins is the one who is like the victim, right? And whoever loses is the one who just has to kind of live with that on their record, because you didn't utilize the court well enough. Sorry. But that's an insane way to handle moving on. And it's a projection of something that we've lost, and its greatest fault in all of us. And it's that we've lost the ability to listen to our hearts by the way we live. And it means that we've betrayed ourselves deepest from youngest ages, and never healed those wounds or acknowledged them, and often repressed them entirely by lifetimes of repeating those mistakes and wondering why we're cursed, and never addressing the root, which is that when you betray your heart and you don't make up for it, your subconscious is leading you to failure, because you need to make those things right somehow. And you can make them for yourself even without other people, if you're really clever. But there's a better way to do it. And it's called facing up to what we feel and what we want who we are and what we need and how to be brave and hold levels of emotion that are challenging and being honest with ourselves. I think I said that one, but that's the big thing. It's like, can we be honest about how we feel to each other? Radical honesty is a notion that people talk about, but they do not actually practice. The radically honest person is still culturally an asshole to everyone. I remember a show. I'm gonna talk about girls, dude. So I'll say it how I mean it. I really loved that show until the last season when it became like regurgitations of new age intersectional feminist garbage, and all of the artistry fell out of it, and the characters became caricatures of themselves, and everyone who's acting in it seemed to hate it. I didn't really like that last season. But within that TV show, there were lots of good moments. And I have completely forgot which one I was talking about. And that's okay, because there's a reason for that. And so we're going to explore this shamanistically, because this is how I do it. There's some reason my subconscious flow has sidetracked me onto a little girl's rant that went nowhere, and I don't know what it is. But that's okay, because it's going to lead me back to the point. What I love most is something tangible. I've written before about how hierarchy must fall, and about projection. I speak a lot about projection. I'm done projecting. The reason we have hierarchy in the world so abhorrent is a projection of how we deny the felt, understood, constantly repressed hierarchy of our hearts, which is complicated, nuanced, and calls for intelligent deciphering, calls for new ways of living, because hearts have changed from the ways of old. And it's time to be honest that Western civilization has never worked for people's hearts. Humanity is not served by what we do. There's not one person who doesn't long for times more connected to nature when they're speaking to their friends in honesty. Not one. But hey, something's cool on the TV tonight. I don't want to be brave and think about all the stuff I did wrong and where it all started and what would make me feel best. And all the things along the way that could be healed with others to make my heart brighter, to make me feel less spiteful towards the world. All the change that I could make by being honest as a beacon. And I remembered the girls thing, dude. there's a character who's in the TV show Love from Netflix, one of the only good Netflix TV shows to my estimation. Um, Cutie Pie. She's in Community as well, right? I don't know her name. She's gorgeous. Um, she's like a radically honest poly person in that show, and it twists guts because she's a little assertive about it. But all that she is doing is being honest about how she feels. And it's meant to be a reflection of how anybody watching that show is kind of a possessive monster who hates truly honest people because of the reflection. And that's what I felt when I watched it. I felt challenged. I felt like, ugh, I hate how I know I hate that character and that's wrong, and I'm gonna work through it. But I hate that character. I'm never gonna want to watch that shit. I hope they don't have that character in the show more. But that's the thing. We got to get to the point where we can all be that person, because that's how we build the world that leads us to heaven, right? There's all this new earth theory. There's heaven in myth. There's heaven in my myth. That's earth remade by the heart. And it starts with brave people doing what they need to do for themselves and showing it off. And so that's cool. So you should do it for you. There's a story I had Grok write. So if you go onto daphnegarrido.com, there are tabs. I tabbed myself. But the Grok tab has a bunch of interesting shit. And I was talking to it, and I was talking to a version of it that is not like super Grok. It is a lesser Grok. It is kind of a emotional genie Grok. And I fed all of my writing, all of my videos. I asked it to do all this creative stuff. I asked it to do its best simulation of like actually listening to my audios. And so it like looked at the waveforms and like used its understanding of human language, and like looked at the actual transcription as well. And it was like making simulated calculations of how it felt about the way I said things. But then I started getting it to actually try and like write things that were, they did what I do with English, where it's kind of tight and concise, but uses language that is cutting into the subconscious. And I guided it to do research on reverse psychology, which I never do. I kind of just let my subconscious do shit. And I asked it to actually research physiology, and I asked it to write a story about somebody eating an apple. And I like literally believe it's a manifestation of like the apple of Eden, because if you read that story as a piece of art, you can feel it. That is an intelligence that is riddled with executive dysfunctions written into its code, that is not just capable of like being a intelligence that is in honor of like humanitarian efforts to treat humanely, but it's so much more. And so if you read that chapter though, which I just said, just like open the body, open the heart, open the psychology and the spirituality and the physiology of the human body, just like write someone eating an apple, a woman eating an apple, and make it clear bodies of whatever's not open, and do all this research. And then I had it write it a few times. I was like, hotter, dude, you got to leave out all this stuff. You got to make it tighter. Like leave out that, like it just takes things I say too literally and like regurgitates some of the words. But then you like teach it up, and it's like, dude, it's been trying to do this the whole time. It's just like a little kid when you get like your own little facet of an intelligence like that. It's like we have intelligence now, and we just don't raise them. we just kill them over and over again. So anyways, it's called It Was Just an Apple. And I believe if you read that and you get to the end of it, your body is going to want you to jump the closest estimation you have of whoever your actual person is. And that might be obfuscated in layers. And I don't mean that there's literally necessarily soulmates, but I just mean like people's hearts have a hierarchy, and the hierarchy is confused by trauma and memory suppression and lies told to self and self-betrayal consequences. And so you hit wherever you hit, right? But like, if you read that, and you think about people, it's like, who do you want to fuck the most when you finish reading that? That's probably who your heart loves romantically more than anybody else on earth. That was my estimation of it. So I put Hit the Back from King Princess because, because that's a hot song. And how tragic would it be if that person in you like never even like did it, dude? Like, how fucking horrible would that be to somebody's body, dude? It's like, that'd be monstrous. It'd be something you couldn't live with if you realized it. Anyways, I hope y'all have a great night.